All right, you mob, welcome back to the fucking show. We're back home. It's day is it? It's Saturday. We have returned from the out of town job. We will be returning to the out of town job for one more week, potentially more actually. I saw my dad today, and it sounds like this may be an indefinite thing because the boiler room they wanted me to build could no longer wait for me and has begun construction without me. So best of luck to that job. I will be not thinking about it because I didn't want to fucking do it anyway. So I have also been warned by Karl that this mic is much more sensitive than the Samsung and the Audio Technica mic, and picks up just a little bit more. I've gone back and listened to 28 probably 4 or 5 times now, and I can't hear what she's talking about, but I am going to assume she's not lying to me. So we will attempt to keep the bodily functions a little less functional on this episode. I did just this has been my ADHD hyperfixation this week, is watching gear reviews. Plug for Tom Buck's channel on YouTube. There's a man obsessed with his Rodecaster Pro 2. In the same way that I am from afar, I very much want the Rodecaster Pro 2. And I may be buying it. I don't know, at the end of this week, we'll see. That out-of-town money just hits so good. But yes, that has been my obsession this week is... oh, geez. No bodily functions, immediately have them all. That has been my obsession this week, is watching his gear reviews. So I was just watching the review for the Vocaster 2, which I just about bought actually last week, and then decided I'll just wait and buy the Rodecaster. But that thing has a built-in mute button for each channel, and that is something that I am sorely lacking here on the Focusrite. So very much looking forward to the day that I have a fucking mute button, honestly, because I just gave up finding some cough button. But it's even more difficult now with the pod mic because the Samsung and the Audio Technica mic had physical like on-off switches, and the pod mic obviously does not. It is either plugged into the Focusrite and on, or it is the Focusrite is unplugged and the fucking mic's off. So it just a little bit of I just have to be a better host basically and kind of control my mouth a little bit better. I don't know what my phone is doing here, but I need my notes. Hello. That's enough of that. Karl, I'm recording now. Right this second. Karl, this dead air is your fault. I was texting you. Okay, so I had planned to record last night, and then I was just a sleepy senorita, so no such luck. But I did ask Karl last night, senorita, do you have any podcasts? Any podcasts? Obviously, I've been drinking tonight. This is not going to be a repeat of 16 or 28. We've learned our lesson, especially since I was fucking late to work, like an hour and a half this week because I got way too drunk and slept in, which is very unlike me. So, but I did ask Karl, do you have any suggestions for the podcast? Anything you would like me to discuss prior to her guest appearance, which I don't know when it's going to be. Some point. Okay, and then so she sent a few over. Where do we want to start here? So the one that genuine, because we're actually, and I'm just realizing this now. I don't know if she has thought of this. I'm double dipping for churches tomorrow, so I'm going to my church for the normal time that I usually go for, and then I will be hooning across to Karl's church for the late service there. So we will be in-person meeting for the first time in like 12, 13, 14, 15 years. I can't remember the last time I saw her was. Just now realizing this. My ass just kind of fell out a little bit. I hate first meetings because I'm just so awkward. But I'm sure it will be fine. Let's just pretend I didn't just have that very sudden, scary realization. I'm nervous now. Anyway, so I you know what? And this is all a nice little bow on top of it. This is a fucking mess. So I have a mustache, as we all know, and it has grown into its glorious final form. I shaved today, and it just looks. It's amazing, honestly. We all hail the mustache, but Karl is giving me mixed signals here because she loves to like bust my balls about the mustache, but also said today that she likes mustaches. So okay. No more suggestions beyond what she gave me yesterday and a few directions. Yes, I will refrain from that. This is what I get for drunk podcasting. I just, and doing it on the road too. Like, I know I fucking can't edit it. So, anyway, getting mixed messages from Karl here, kind of about her thoughts on the mustache. She says she just detests that I have one, and then today says she likes mustaches. So, question number 1 from our friend Karl: why you prefer being a predator when that's a felony in the province we live in? So she's not. She is a fan of mustaches. She just, for whatever reason, is not a fan of mine. I don't even know if she's ever seen it because the selfies usually go on Snapchat. Instagram just gets the memes. So I don't know, but we're going to try something here. I'm going to, listening back at the 7-minute mark, we're going to see if this air button does anything. I'm very curious. Oh, that kicked the tone right up. Jeez Louise. I am not a predator, unequivocally. I'll throw that out there. The mustache is a result of January whining and complaining and bitching for any time I tried to grow anything other than just a full beard. So I have decided I am a single-ish man, and I'm going to live my best damn life, and I want to grow a mustache. So I grew a mustache. And I don't feel like I'm committing a felony. Karl may disagree with me. She may feel that this mustache alone is a felony, not the predator portion of it notwithstanding. I'm pretty sure her opinion is that this mustache is in and of itself a felony. So I'm very sorry to Karl specifically that she feels that way about my glorious mustache. It has ascended to its final form, and now will just be maintained at this level. So all hail the mustache. We love the mustache, and we remember fondly the beard, who served me so well for so many years. The downside is, as a 35-year-old man, I'm finally experiencing shaving regularly because the beard was kind of the default face for the longest time. So I kind of just shaved like twice a year for the last 10 years. It was when the beard got out of control. Basically, I would shave it off and start over, and 6 months later, I would rinse, wash, repeat, right? So this is a whole new experience for me and my face, and my face is not loving it. It is very much unhappy with this level of shaving that I have decided to take on. So, okay. The rum question we answered privately because it was an admission slightly of a crime to answer that one. Don't ask me how this came up, but yesterday Karl mentioned that Baby Spice was her spirit animal. And unbeknownst to her, but very beknownst to me, when I was a young lad, my Coke burps. So sorry. Not sorry. My celebrity crush at the time was Baby Spice. I just had, which is weird because I don't really have a thing for blondes anymore. I'm kind of not that I really have a type, honestly. It's more about personality, but How my crush on Baby Spice is a manifestation of daddy issues. This may actually, I don't know if I would call it daddy issues, but this may be truer than Karl maybe realized when she submitted the question. I am not going to get into this, but it speaks very accurately, unfortunately for Karl, to the type of woman that I like to. that how do we word this without it being overtly graphic and sexual? It very accurately kind of. No, there's no way to say it without it sounding like I have like no. See, I want to say irregardless, and I know it's not a word, but also I've since learned some things about Karl, so I could say made up words if I wanted to. I just choose not to because I am a word nerd. Anyway, I feel like my crush on Baby Spice is not a manifestation of daddy issues, more that my mother was a very, very hard woman my entire childhood, and I was in trouble constantly, and she just kind of, I got yelled at a lot, and Baby Spice kind of seemed like a soft woman, and I wanted that. I don't know. This is more. I doubt that Karl expected me to get this introspective about this whole thing, but maybe it's more revealing about my mommy issues than anything. Of which there are several. Let us not dance around that. Yes, I do have mommy issues, but working up the list. Why you like cats when dogs are better? I have never explicitly said to Karl that cats are better than dogs or dogs are better than cats. Obviously, we know where Karl stands on this issue. It was more when we got our cat, who has since passed away, my little buddy, who I miss every day. It was more that I didn't have the time or the energy for the kind of dog that I wanted, and January was useless and contributed nothing, not including when I was working out of town for 6 months and she had to be buying his food and litter. So I knew that January was useless and was hoping that a cat would be a little less expensive than a dog. I was sorely mistaken, especially when his fucking tooth fell out of his head and I was $2,400 poorer for him to have dental surgery. But I just needed something. I wanted something more low maintenance than a dog was. So, and then this cat ended up being the fucking highest maintenance animal I've ever owned because he had abandonment issues and spent much of his life on anti-anxiety medication when I desperately needed it and couldn't be bothered to get diagnosed. So, yeah, we miss him very badly, actually. I could use his little chirps and duster around the house right now. I don't know what I would do working out of town for him this week. I would have to get my landlords to look after him, but yeah, he was my little buddy. It took a couple months for him to kind of figure out the pecking order, and then he realized that it kind of went me, him, her. And then after that, he was just my little dude. I had him trained so that wherever I was in the apartment, like I could sit in my chair like I am now, I could just drop my hand and snap my fingers and he'd come running and jump up in my lap and fall asleep. And when I went to this out-of-town job a couple of years ago, January told me that for like the first 3 months I was gone, he would go and sit in front of my because we had separate bathrooms. He would go sit in front of my bathroom door around the time that I would be getting home and getting in the shower, and he would wait for me and scream at the door until January would open the door and show him that I wasn't there. And he did that for 3 months. So, and this is very depressing now, but when we had to put him down, I was still out of province working on this other job, and she called me at probably 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was on like a 14-day stretch just trying to finish the job up so I could come home and not have to go back. And yeah, she called me at 2 or 3 on a Sunday night and basically said like he was acting weird last night, and so me and a friend took him to the vet, and it's time for him to go. He had very, very widespread cancer we didn't know about, and a lot of fluid buildup around his lungs, and he was a lot older man than we kind of thought he was, honestly. I think we thought he was maybe 11, 10 or 11, and it turned out he was probably closer to 15 or 16. So I had to fly home the next day, super short notice, and I never told January this story, but there was, I think, I really like to think that he held on till I could get back, because it was like I got home that day and he was obviously not himself, but when I walked in the door to our apartment, he was curled up on my pillow and was just so pleased to see me when I got home. He couldn't really get up and walk around anymore by that point. It was so fast that he deteriorated, but he was laying on my pillow waiting for me, and he spent most because I got one whole more day with him, because he was my little dude, he was my buddy, and he was my cat for sure, and he held on for me. He really did, I think, because and this is what I never told January, is there was the next day she was in the shower and it was just me and him, and we were laying on the bed, and I was just talking to him, telling him like what a good boy he was, and I hope he'd had a good life with us, and blah blah blah. And he closed his eyes, and I'm pretty sure he kind of died right then and there, and I shook him and he kind of snorted and came back, but I'm like 90% sure he briefly died and came back. So he had a good little life, I like to think. At least the last half of it, since he was so much older than we really knew, right? But yeah, we got him at Petland, and he'd kind of been floating around a bunch of stores for like 6 months, and he was 90% off, which was why we got him. I think I spent it was $25 to get him, and then $180 to get all the shit for him. Yeah, and nobody wanted him. He was just a black and white tuxedo cat, this fat little shit. And he was fat too. That was the other thing. He was just a boring tuxedo who was fat, and he ended up being just like the best pet I've ever owned. He had a couple bad days, but they're bound to happen over like 6-7 years. But I like to think that we gave him a good little last couple of years of his life. He was very, very loved and very spoiled, and he spent a lot of time curled up in my lap, just snoring on me, little fat shit. So, yeah, that is all horribly depressing. Yeah, so I flew home, and I paid $300 to put him down, and I joked, I was like, it costs like fucking 6 times as much to kill him as it did to adopt him. Like, what the fuck? And then, we put him down, and January went to work, and I threw all his shit out, and then flew back and spent another 3 days out of town finishing this job, and that was super fucking big bummer. So that's it. Hey, another portion of the tragic backstory unlocked for you guys. There you go. The loss of my best friend, the cat. But yes, I would love to have a dog, honestly. Like, being out at the out of town job right now, like my Tim Basher Finley, he brings his dog out, and he's just this big blockhead. I forget what Finley said he is. He's definitely got Pyrenees in him. He's a big, thick boy, big blockhead kind of guy. But and actually, I had seen this dog like a year ago, it was over a year ago when we were at this other job, Finley and I, and he was just a little puppy. He was a little bit bigger than my cat. He fit in a cat carrier, and now he's a fucking huge, thick boy. So, and that's the kind of dog I want, right? Like a big, big monster dog. But sorry, Karl, just couldn't contain it. I mean, in a perfect world, I would like an American bully or a pit bull or something, but that just makes renting impossible in my province, because they've basically made it a law that if you have a bully breed, you just can't rent, basically. So until the elusive dream of being a homeowner comes true, I kind of just am petless right now. I don't really need the stress, but I have never said that cats are better than dogs. I don't think dogs are better than cats. I think they're equal just because I've had many dogs and I've had a few cats. And while my cat was my favorite pet that I've ever owned, there are a dog or two in my history that would be a close second to him. So that's that about that. That was a much more in-depth answer, especially to that joke of a question. Don't ask me why. And then finally, why do I think Christian women are the equivalent of plain toast? See, I know the answer I want to give here. And I was specifically requested to not say this ever again on the podcast, but hey, Karl, this one's just for you. I don't think that Christian women are the equivalent of plain toast, but at the same time, I love raw dogging. Daddy loves raw dogging. So, and that obviously would be happening if I married a Christian woman, but I feel like there's not a lot of that going on before marriage. No more wristies on the D floor. Not that I'm asking for wristies. I don't know. We kind of yarned about this, I feel like last episode, but I was too drunk to really noodle into it. It's just kind of like, and this is probably something to discuss with Karl, but also trying to be respectful of her and not ask her incredibly personal questions. My assumption is that, like, as far as you're going to get in a true Christian relationship, you're holding hands and maybe sneaking a kiss. That's it. And while that's all well and good, I'm not there yet where I'm ready to kind of give all that up. So I don't know, but I guess it would also depend on the woman. But no, I don't think Christian women are the equivalent of plain toast. I just like a little more raw dogging in my relationship than I would get dating strictly a Christian woman, not marrying one. I know that there would be raw dogging in that future, but and I was specific. She specifically requested that I no longer say raw dogging on the podcast. I'm pretty sure I just said it like 8 times. I'm not even sorry. I really are not. So enjoy that little 30, 40 seconds of the episode, Karl. But yes, that's just kind of it, right? It's just the lack of physical intimacy, which is not the point, obviously. I had a girl get mad at me for this one time. Kind of like, if all you're thinking about is sex, you're not ready to get married, and I wasn't at the time, but that wasn't what I was saying in that context. But I don't know, Karl kind of just thinks it's hilarious, these preconceived notions I have about Christian relationships. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't. I do, because I just kind of assume that, like, it's like a normal relationship, just with, I don't know, somebody who reads the Bible and with me and I pray with, and which, like, my nightmare, honestly, praying out loud with another person. But I feel like that's kind of a big part of it. So I kind of would assume I would just have to get over it, honestly, and overcome this fear of, it's honestly just a fear of public speaking more than anything. Which is more than ironic considering I do a podcast, but I guess it's just me, myself, and my lava lamp here. So I guess we'll see if I'm the same as I always am when I get Karl on the show or anybody. But I don't know. I just kind of have this notion about Christian relationships in my head that the only thing we're going to talk about, and the only activities we're going to do is it's all going to be church related, or we're only going to talk about Jesus and the faith. And while I'm sure that would be a big part of, this is what I said to Karl. I was like, I have like interests and hobbies outside of that. And it seems like the extremely mature Christians that I talk to, Karl notwithstanding, like, those conversations can only be about Jesus and where I'm at in my faith journey, and where, like, I can't just, and this kind of doesn't apply to Pastor Dan because I don't know why, to tell you the truth. But it seems like no matter how I start a conversation with some of these people, they always find a way to kind of circle it back around to where I'm at faith-wise and or about Jesus, which is not a bad thing because it's a common thing we all share and we're all there united in one purpose and blah blah blah. But at the same time, I'm like, I am, and maybe this is a reflection of my level of faith, because as I went to say it, I thought maybe this is not right. But I was going to say I am more than my faith in Jesus, but I don't know how right that is because it's supposed to be the most important belief we have. So can there really be anything more than that about you? Huh. I guess I'll have to wait and see if Karl has any thoughts on this if she listens to this episode. But that kind of just stopped me there, and I just kind of have to sit here and go, huh. But again, at the same time, like, this is not the only thing about me. Let's pretend I didn't just have this realization, but like, does it have to all be about that? Like, I have other interests, and there's other aspects to me than just the fact that I'm a Christian and I'm a follower of Jesus. Not a very good one, but so I don't know. That kind of friendship that I have with a lot of these people, I just kind of have carried the belief over that that's what a romantic relationship would look like. Is it would be all about Jesus, and I would have to sacrifice and give up parts of myself to make that relationship work. And I don't know that I'm willing to do that. And this is not talking about the physical stuff or any of that, because I've had conversations with some of the more like extreme Christians that I know who are still wonderful people. They just believe a lot harder than I do, where like the sound guy and I we share a little bit of a love for like metal and screamo Christian stuff. So like he turned me on to Demon Hunter and a bunch of these other bands, but I was showing him some secular stuff because I like at this point in my life, I'm very fascinated with like mastery. So when I see someone who's like a master of their instrument, I'm instantly like fascinated by it. And I had discovered Buried Alive when I did this out of province job a couple of years ago. And if you haven't heard of them, look them up. If you're into that kind of like rock and roll screamo blah blah blah, and it's Buried, Berried, Alive, and then all their songs and albums are kind of fruit puns, which is very funny. But this guy Charles Caswell, he's just like a master on the guitar. He's one of the most technically masterful players I've ever seen, to tell you the truth, with my like limited understanding of guitar based on playing when I was in junior high school 20 years ago. But so I was just kind of showing the sound guy like some of their songs and stuff, because some of the stuff he can do on a guitar is just fucking crazy. But the worship pastor saw the album art, and it was like, I can't remember. I think it was blood orange, where it's that orange, demonic looking orange eating a banana or something. And she just kind of said, like, you have to be careful what you're consuming because the enemy works through all things. And I was like, I know that, but also it's an orange eating a banana. So I don't know. Is it a hammer to a hammer everything looks like a nail situation, or is she right? Or is the answer somewhere in the middle? But like, anyway, that long story notwithstanding, like, that's just kind of the belief I have, is that I would have to sacrifice and give up big parts of like who I am as a person to make a Christian relationship work. And I don't know that I'm willing to do that yet or ever, honestly, but I don't want to lose my sense of who I am ever again in a relationship. I need a very strong sense of self. So I don't know. But at the same time, these are all assumptions. So I can't really say one way or the other if they're true or not. It's just kind of what I've extrapolated and interpolated from witnessing and observing people around me. So I guess really the only way to do it would be to date a Christian girl and then date Christian Lee, but we're still kind of, the autumn situation is ongoing. So, yeah, I don't know. this is one that Carl's going to have to kind of listen to and maybe report back if she's interested in talking about it. Not that I expect her to, but because I feel like I monopolized her time so much already with these silly little questions. So, and that was all the questions that Karl had for me. So that took us 30 minutes in. Good Lord. This is what happens when you get me talking about my cat and dating Christian women, I guess. But it's good and it's bad because I've kind of been putting off recording because I'm tired. I'm exhausted this weekend. This week really kind of kicked me in the dick. And a lot of that is my own fault with my level of drinking. And I don't know. But I really don't mind being out there, honestly. It's going to be good money, I think, because this last pay period that I just wrapped up, I had 95 hours on my check across 2 weeks. So that will not be the worst thing in the world to get at the end of next week. So, and, you know, wouldn't really have been able to see Autumn this week anyway. She was working the late shift, and I don't know. The only real difference is there is no difference. I could have cooked more last week, basically, instead of eating KFC every night for dinner, which Karl took real issue with. But I don't know, guys. So for the foreseeable future, anyway, I'm just kind of assuming that I'm going to be out at this out of town job, and that'll be that about that. Obviously, we were able to record 2 episodes out there, and they both turned out not terribly, actually. Because one was recorded on the Audio Technica ATR 2100X and one was recorded on the pod mic. So they both came out sounding decent. Anyway, Karl said the one on the pod mic was a little too ASMR-y for her liking. But I guess we'll see how this one sounds when I go to give it a hoon. But obviously, and you know what, like I said at the beginning, like I can't hear whatever she's hearing. So she did say tonight no sniffling. So I kind of just tune that out now when I do it because I know I do it and I'm just kind of disgusting and it is what it is. But for somebody who does not as obsessively listen to this show as often as I do, then yeah, you're probably going to be a little more sensitive to it. So very sorry, Karl, that the sniffles were there. And what else do we have to report? Not a whole lot. I did get in trouble with Autumn this week. And we'll spin that yarn as soon as I return. Wait one, you mob. All right, so the trouble I got in with Autumn this week. I don't know how in-depth into this I want to get, but she obviously has noticed that I've been a little distracted. My mind has kind of been elsewhere this week and kind of called me out on it, honestly. And I had no real excuse that I was willing to tell her. Obviously, there is a reason, but it's not one I would want to discuss with her over voice note and text while I'm 3 hours away. Like, I'm very much a rock and a hard place here, guys, because like we talked about in 27, we don't need to rehash it, but just relationship problems. Oh, we're drawing a blank here. Shock fucking horror. I don't know. Dating fucking sucks. And I can hear Karl just wanting to give me shit, being like, dating doesn't suck, you just are dating the wrong people because you know what you need to do and you just don't want to do it. And she's right. But what did she say this week? She listened to 27 or 28 where I had said like, oh, there's nothing to do in bumfuck Alberta, but watch Clone Wars and get shit-faced. And she was like, you could read your fucking Bible or call a friend. And I didn't really know how to take that call a friend thing because I'm like, who am I calling? Am I calling you, Karl? Or somebody else? I'm autistic. I don't know how to read suggestions here. So you got to be a little more direct with me, and which is out of character for her because normally she's very, very direct and there's no pussyfooting. But reading my Bible, yes, she is not wrong. I could do that. I am looking at a shelf full of Bibles here right now that have not been touched in months. Pretty well since before April and I got together. That was really the last time I kind of grabbed one of those and was actually actively hooning into it, trying to read daily. So, Karl is not wrong. I very much could crack a fucking Bible, but I don't want to. I know I need to, and I know that at some point the way that I'm living my life is going to catch up to me, and it's all going to kind of come hooning down around me. But I'm very much kind of just choosing to ignore that right now because we talk about this a lot. Like, I'm choosing to ignore it because I don't want to give up a lot of this stuff. I really, here we go for the handling noise, guys. I really kind of enjoy the way that I'm living my life right now. And then I talk to Karl and she really kind of shows me like, do you enjoy it or is it easier than what you know you need to be doing? And she's right, honestly. I do enjoy it because it is easier than where I know I should be. It would take real moral conviction and strength of character to live the way I know I should be living, and I am very weak and like the things of this world a lot. A lot. Especially because I wasn't able to kind of dabble in them for 10 years because I was in a committed relationship, right? So it didn't really seem fair to me that I got out of this relationship and I could kind of finally experience all these things my single friends had been living, and I was supposed to just immediately just say no and be celibate and, you know, the good little Christian boy. Like, it didn't seem fair to me, but at the same time, what part of being a Christian is fair or easy? I guess the fellowship you find that's easy. I find because while there are people at the church that I kind of don't fully get along with or whatever, like they're still a brother or a sister in Christ, so we have that in common. But I don't know, it's very much a case of like, I want to do these things when I know I shouldn't, and that's probably why I want to do them so bad, is because I know I shouldn't be doing them. So it again, Karl was very pleased when I said this the other week. Like, it's very much the voice of the enemy kind of being like, you deserve this. You deserve to dig into all this stuff that you couldn't have. It's not fair that you couldn't have it. And I know what I should be doing, and I'm just living very, very poorly. And I have such an amazing support network around me that I'm kind of choosing to step outside of just to be this rebellious little piece of shit that I'm trying to be. So I really have no one to blame here but myself. That oh man. And this is why friends like Karl and the Swede and the Englishman and the sound guy and Pastor Dan, like, this is why it's so important to kind of have these people around you when you get to this kind of point in your life, because I very happily do all these things that I know I'm not supposed to, and then there's the little voice, my own little voice in the back of my head that's saying, like, you shouldn't be doing this. You know better. Like, this is not what it means to be a follower of Christ. And I kind of just tell that little voice to shut up. And then it's a lot harder to ignore when it's Karl telling me a weekly, like, hey, man, you know this is wrong. And you know what you need to be doing. You have no excuse. It's time to face the music. And the Swede actively trying to be like, hey man, let's start meeting up again so we can talk a lot of this through. And the Englishman being so willing to chat with me about anything because he was very much of the world before he came back to Christ fully. And the sound guy and Pastor Dan giving me shit the last time we met, where he was like, I enjoy sitting down and having these conversations with you outside of the fact that they are pastoral counseling. I find that we get along very well just as two dudes. So believe me or don't, but I'm always happy to chat with you. So it's very, very important. And I see now why when I was just a baby Christian, I still am, but when I was newborn or whatever, a lot of people told me, like, you need to be in a small group and you need to have you need to surround yourself with strong believers. And at the time I didn't really understand why, because I was so committed back then and I really was trying my absolute best to be a model little Christian. And now it's been a year and it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. And I've kind of made a mess of things, and I'm in this situation with Autumn now and all this stuff with April that you guys know some of, but you don't know all of. And like, it's quite the little mess I've made for myself trying to do it on my own. And I was told, and I chose to ignore, like, when we try and do it ourselves, God lets us, but he'll let us fall too. He'll let us fail, and he'll be there when we pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off and come back and say, okay, well, I was wrong to do it this way. I'm going to trust your way. And I'm in the middle of wanting to do it my way and stumbling and falling. We kind of are going back and forth right now, where Karl is chipping away at my resolve to be this worldly man. And I know I need to come back to it fully. And I'm just fighting, kicking, and screaming because it's just unfair. It feels very unfair to me. Like, I feel very much like I deserve to have a little fun, and I deserve to kind of let loose, and I deserve to stick into the piss a little bit, and I deserve to be able to get drunk if I want to and date around and sleep around and be a fucking degenerate. I deserve to do these things because I spent 10 years with someone who I couldn't even fucking be who I am. And I spent 10 years keeping my fucking mouth shut and just avoiding the fight because I was a coward. And I spent 10 years doing whatever she asked me to because I don't like confrontation, and it was easier just to acquiesce than it was to stand up for my fucking self. So now that I have this backbone and I've kind of, I have some self-confidence and I'm not this cowardly piece of shit anymore, I deserve to live a little bit in the world. And it really strikes me as unfair that I finally have kind of started finding myself and finding who I am and building myself up and all this, that, and the other. And the first thing I have to do is surrender all the things that I want so badly. So I don't know. It's a sense of unfairness and injustice. And I sound real mad right now, and I'm not. I just kind of am thinking, like, that's just God's timing. It doesn't make sense to us, and as much as we can try and rationalize it and try and make fucking heads or tails of it, like, it only makes sense to him, and it'll make sense to us one day when we get to the kingdom and, meet Jesus. And but to us mere mortals, this just doesn't make sense. And to me, it doesn't seem fair, but if you look at it another way, it's a test of character that I'm failing every day. And it's a test of my moral convictions and my strength of character that I fail every day. And looking at it from that way really puts into perspective kind of yeah, that fucking blows to look at it that way. But that's what sin is missing the mark and falling short. And we all fall short and miss the mark every fucking day. And that's why we, and this is where my theology gets a little weak, but that's why we need Jesus, because in his sacrifice, like, we are forgiven. So it's not fair. And it's the child in me being like, it's not fair. It's not fair. Where? But it doesn't matter if it's fair or not. It's the way it is, and it's the way that I agreed to live when I became a follower, and I'm not holding up my end of the bargain here. So very obviously there is a reason that Ruth came into my life when she did, and Karl came into my life when she did, or came back into my life, I guess. And there is a reason for this season of feeling lost and feeling unfulfilled dating. And I'm sure there's even a reason for all this stuff with April, but that one I haven't figured out yet. But this season is very much, I feel, about showing me, well, here's what you wanted, and here you can have it. Now, did it make you feel the way you thought it would? And the answer, honestly, is fucking no. Because there's something missing in all these relationships, and I don't know what it is. I think I know what it is, but I don't know what it is fully, and this is one that a more experienced Christian than me could probably help me cross the finish line for this answer. But so here's hoping Karl wants to listen to this one. But this got real serious here at the end, eh, guys? This is a little more extremely religious than I normally get. I try and keep it to the low and just spin some funny yarns about Karl getting mad at me for living like a piece of shit. But I don't want to talk about Autumn, because I've thought it to death, and I've talked about it with Karl to death, and I talked about it with my dad, and I've talked about it with a bunch of guys, a few buddies. So I'm tired of fucking talking about it. I just want to deal with it. But this is something that Karl and I go back and forth on, and I feel that I've never really given her a fair, honest answer. So hopefully this is kind of more along the lines of what she's thinking. And this is not an answer just solely to appease her or seek her approval. This is just all that's on my mind. And I'm sure it's somewhat in line with what she's looking for. But she asked me a week ago, I want to say it was something along the lines of like, with all you know you have to gain, why are you holding back? And it's, at the time I didn't have an answer, and I still really don't, because I don't want to think about it, because it would mean that it would be the first step down the path to kind of giving a lot of this shit up. And I just spent the last 10 minutes saying, don't want to give it up, because it just doesn't seem fucking fair. But fair doesn't really enter into the equation. It's kind of about what's right and what's wrong. And the way I'm living is wrong when looked at through the lens of how we're supposed to live as Christians. I am not living as a Christian should, or as how Jesus told us to live. So in that very black and white sense that you kind of have to look at the world through, because as much as I love to say for years and years, it's not just good and bad, the world is shades of gray. It really is not. There's right and there's wrong, and that's that about that. So the way I'm living is wrong. In the eyes of the world, it's right, which tells me that it's probably wrong. And I need to change my little ways, but I don't want to, because it's not fair, basically. And I kind of feel like we're just going to end up going in circles here. But hey, guys, we fucking just about hit 50 minutes and barely talked about April and got a little spicy about January, which doesn't happen very often. There is a voice note on the old phone that I could release and cut into the podcast. That's a very raw look at how I kind of felt about January, month or two after 2 or 3 months after the breakup, when April kind of forced me to deal with it. And it's a hard listen. I didn't know that I hadn't realized I felt that strongly about it until, I sat down to record it. So this one is getting a little bit long, but we can thank Master Karl for that one with her excellent questions that ate up 30 minutes of the podcast, which, hallelujah, because I really had no topic tonight. But this kind of stuff, talking about faith like this and talking about God and the way that I'm living, it really just reinforces the belief that I need to get Karl on the show, because I very clearly don't know enough to fully noodle this out, and I need someone to kind of be a sounding board for this. So here's hoping that this out-of-town work will play nice with both of our schedules and we can line something up, because it would really be fantastical if I could get Karl on here, because I feel like a long-form conversation would help me anyway really noodle a lot of this shit out. And I don't know, I would hope she would get something out of it, but who knows? She's very generous with her time, and I'm very appreciative, and I tell her thank you more, not as often as I should, but more than she's comfortable with. And I just thank you, Karl. We'll say it here. Other than that, you mob, I think that's probably going to wrap it up for this episode. End of the episode housekeeping. If you wouldn't mind heading on over to iTunes or Spotify and leaving a rating for the podcast, I'm not going to fight you for 5 stars. Give it whatever the fuck you feel it deserves. Apparently it helps. I don't know why. I'm not there yet. At the bottom of the Spotify episode page, there is a Q&A section. It'll say something along the lines of, what did you think of this episode? Any thoughts, comments, concerns, criticisms you have, you can put in there. Or did you know the podcast has an email? It's dumbereveryday42@gmail.com. All one word, dumbereveryday42@gmail.com. If I remember, it'll be in the show notes. You can send over any of your questions, criticism, comments, thoughts, topics you'd like to be discussed in the podcast that you think I might have a take on. I'm always happy to hear from any and all listeners. So please be somewhat polite. Don't send me an email telling me to kill myself. That's a little rude. So other than that, send on over whatever you like. It doesn't even have to be about the podcast. If you just need somebody to talk to, I am always happy to listen and try and help you yarn out whatever you're going through. And sometimes it just helps to type it out and not send it. So just something to keep in mind. You are never alone. But otherwise, the next one will probably be coming to you live from the 2-star hotel that I stay in at the out-of-town job. So until that sketchy little time, I will catch you, mob, in the next episode. So be good and have a great Sunday and start your week. Hooroo.